wait is over.
Ladies and gentlemen, from the studios in the wrestling capital of the South, it's another terrific episode of The BENGEBUSTER Show. Please welcome your host, Tony Binge.
All right, everyone, welcome to The BENGEBUSTER Show. It has been quite a while since I've had a podcast, thanks to being sick for quite some time. I caught a bad cough, couldn't get rid of it. Still have a little touch of it, but I thought, man, I got to get a podcast out there or my listeners are going to forget all about me. So here we are back this week. My friend Chris Plano is on another assignment this week, so he's not with me, but I do have a guest this week. I'm excited. He's been on the podcast before when in the early stages of my podcast, but I'm bringing him back this week. I'm so excited to have on this week. I'm talking about none other than Willie G. What is going on?
What's going on, Tony? Thank you for having me back, man. I appreciate it.
Man, it's glad
means a lot.
Yeah, I'm glad to have you back, man. It's been a minute since you and I got to sit down and have a conversation. Shoot, man, it's been years since we've actually been in the same room, and I hate that, man. We used to. I remember the good old days, man. We were always on those on shows together, man. It's like we always ended up sitting next to each other in the dressing room and sharing stories, man. It was always a good time.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, I kind of, I haven't been wrestling in a couple years. Just, injuries and stuff like that. But I definitely need to come out to a show sometime and check you out. I haven't seen you in a few years, like you said.
Yeah, man.
But,
yeah, for sure.
Cool to share a locker room with you.
Yeah, it was always a good time. A few weeks ago, I got to finally do something I've been wanting to do since I was a little kid. I got to work a show with the Rock and Roll Express, but not only work a show, but man, I got to be in the ring with them. Me and my partner, we donned our hoods and got in there, man, down there in Rock Hill, South Carolina, with a crowd of about 700 to 800 people, and it was just an old school Mid Atlantic town. And man, I tell you what, Willie, when I walk to the ring and I'm looking around, I'm like, man. I kind of like had that feeling where I was back in Crockett territory. It was 1985 again, and man, when Rock and Roll King hit, I'm not gonna lie, man, I got goosebumps and I had tears in my eyes, and I looked over, and it wasn't just the fact that I'm in the ring with my favorite tag team of all time, but man. There's no feeling better that you look around, you hear all these people chanting rock and roll, but you look over in the crowd, man, and I see my family right there in the stands, getting to witness that moment with me, and seeing my little boy. My son's 6, so he don't know the difference between heels and babies and who's the good guy, who's the bad guy, because in his eyes it doesn't matter. Dad's always the good guy. And after the show, you're going to love this story. So after the show, my wife tells me, she's like, so let me tell you about what happened in the stands tonight. I was like, okay. She's like, so all these people are chanting rock and roll, right? And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, except for our son, he's chanting sucks. As everybody says rock and roll, he's saying sucks. And
very nice.
Yeah, so I was like, oh, she's like, he was cheering for his dad, and she's like, and whenever they started beating you up, she's like, he started getting mad. He's like, them idiots are hurting my dad. I'm gonna go in there and hit him with my taekwondo. I was like, man, he's ready to take it for his dad, man. But man, it was a good time. It was fun. And incidentally, I am booked, or was booked, to go back and work for that same great company, the PWF. This coming Saturday, but unfortunately, Willie, you probably remember this, but about 18 years ago, whatever it was, I sustained a pretty bad knee injury, dislocated my kneecap at Boogie's wrestling camp training, and of course that knee gave me problems for a lot of years. And this past week, I believe it was Tuesday. I was at work, my real job, and I was coming down the stairs, and I was carrying a box and stepped kind of weird, and ended up hurting my knee again. So for the first time in my illustrious 27 or 28 year, I can't keep up with it anymore, but that I've been wrestling, I've never ever had to cancel a booking. And it pained me to do that, but I had to cancel the booking because I didn't want to take a chance of hurting it more. Went to the doctor, and they told me that I kind of sprained my knee and tore some of the not tore, but like strained some of the tendons, and it came from the fact that the knee never did completely heal up. So. With that being said, I'm missing this weekend show, so it hurts me to cancel a booking, but sometimes that happens.
Oh yeah, sometimes, man. I hate to hear that. I didn't really cancel too many bookings either, Tony. Maybe like 2 or 3, man. I could think of one like towards the end of my career.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you real quick. I know that's kind of off topic of what we're getting towards, but I was supposed to wrestle for this guy, and it was the second show that I was going to wrestle for him. I'd wrestled for him a couple weeks earlier. So he's doing it at a bar outside in August.
Oh, man.
On the day of the show, like literally we got like a weather alert that it was going to be the hottest day of the year, and with the heat index, it was going to be 120 degrees. And I was like, I'm good, man. I don't think I'm going to be wrestling outside today. I mean, his show started at like 2 o'clock, so it was like in the heat of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and look, my buddy Meatball,
oh yeah,
longtime friend of mine, he told me that like everybody that wrestled was out there throwing up.
Oh, man.
I was like, yeah. I was like, I think I made the right decision not heading out there for that thing, man. But yeah, not too many injuries kept me out of bookings. I mean, I did take a little bit of time off, a couple times for injuries, but never like, kept me from making bookings. But real quick, I just wanted to tell you, man, you were talking about your son cheering for you at the show. And, most of the time on the shows that I've been, I'm with you a lot. You were mostly a heel.
Yeah. I
know lately you've been working a little bit more face stuff. But when I was a kid, Tony, I was at Southampton College. And Southampton is the town that I'm from. And I was always a fan of the bad guys, man. I hated Hulk Hogan. And, this was like 1985 probably. And I'm like 4 years old, and I couldn't stand him. I did like Jimmy Snuka, but that was like the only babyface I liked. I really liked Roddy Piper and guys like that. And I went to a show at Southampton College. It was the WWF's like third string guys pretty much. And the main event was, I'm trying to remember, it was like Rocky Johnson and I think it was Rocky Johnson and Tony Atlas versus Nikolai Volkov and the Iron Sheik. And I'm standing in this hallway, and the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov walk up, and all the other kids run away. Uh-huh. And I just stood there, and I was like in awe. And he comes up, and he says to my dad, he's like, "Can I pick him up?" And the Iron Sheik picked me up and just stood there and talked to me. He's like, "I miss my kids so much." He's like, "This is like the best thing that's happened to me in days, just to be able to hold me and talk to me about wrestling and talk to my dad." And my dad's like, none of the other kids would stay there because they'd all seen what the Iron Sheik does to people on TV. And so after that, I really loved the heels, man. So it's just always been my thing, man. So maybe he'll grow up just liking the heels because his dad is a good one.
Yeah, well, for me, when I first got into wrestling, well, let me rewind. A lot of people, that know me now that didn't know me in high school probably are like, okay, yeah, whatever. But when I was, but when I was in school growing up, elementary school, on up even into high school, I was an extremely shy person. Like, I mean, I had friends and I talked to friends, but to really get me to speak in front of a class, man, I would like get so much anxiety when my teacher would ask me to read. I was like, oh, I didn't want to do that. And so for me to get into wrestling, like when I was a little kid and got introduced to it by my dad, I was like, man, when I grow up, I'm going to do that, you know. And then in 1985, when my dad started taking me to the matches, and I'm in Greensboro Coliseum, and 16 to 20,000 people are screaming rock and roll, and as I see Ricky and Robert coming, down from the dressing room through the crowd, and back then they didn't have the nice aisles like they have now. Literally, the wrestlers came through the people. And by the time Ricky and Robert got to the ring, their shirts were ripped off, or half their clothes were off, and they probably had sex on the way to the ring. And I remember as a 10-year-old kid looking at my dad and going, one day I'm going to do that. And he's like, son, anything you put your mind to, you can do. And then, of course, as the years went by, I got older. I'm like, what a dream. I'd never be a wrestler. And then lo and behold, when I did get the opportunity to get into wrestling, immediately, and I always had that dream of being like Ricky and Robert, the ultimate baby face, where everybody loved me and come out. But once I got into training and started seeing the heels and how they interacted with the people, I had this thought come to mind. It's easier to make people hate you than make people like you. And so I'm like, I'm going to try this heel thing, and almost like it came natural to me. Like and not only that, but like, man, I was able to bust out of my shell of being so shy. Almost, I wouldn't say instantly. It took a few shows, but once I got there, man, I embellished it. I embraced it, and I set a goal for myself. I'm like, I'm not the biggest guy. Definitely don't have the best body, but I'm going to be the best heel on the show. I'm going to be better than any heel out there. And I had this one wrestler come to me one time, and he said, Tony, he says, you know what I think you need to do as a heel? I'm like, what? He goes, you need to be one of them little conniving little, every time that you win a match, you win it with a gimmick. You got to have something. You got to have brass knuckles. You got to have some kind of, just when they think that little guy's beat, boom, he pulls something out of his tights and wins. He's like, that's the kind of little heel that you're going to do, and that will help you offset your size. Because when I first started, I wasn't big. Really, I didn't have no business in the ring. I was so small back then. But luckily, I was lucky enough to have promoters that saw my heart and how bad I wanted it, and they gave me the opportunity. So, but as I got older and got more, and got a lot better at being a heel, and started working around guys like Jimmy Valiant. Jimmy told me one time, he said, Tony, he said, you know what makes you such a great heel? And I said, what's that? He goes, you're such a nice guy. And I didn't understand what he meant by that, And I was like, wait a minute, how can I be a good heel, but I'm a nice guy? And then he told me one day, he's like, some of the best characters are opposite of what they really are. And of course, then he started telling me stories of how guys like Ivan Koloff and Baron von Raschke and those kind of guys were great heels on TV, but in real life, man, they were the guys that would give you the shirt off their back, and just super nice guys. And I'm not tooting my own horn, but I mean that's the kind of person I am, and that's the kind of person I've always been. I like to help people, and so I know we kind of get off subject here, but I guess that's kind of why I'm such a good heel, is because I am nice to people, and I want to see people strive, but it's so much easier being a heel than being a babyface, because it's easier. Like as a babyface, you walk through that curtain. If the crowd don't like you, there really ain't a whole lot you can do to make them like you. But
you're right.
But if you're a heel, you walk out, they don't like you. You can really make them hate you if you know how to do it right. And my character as a heel, I'm able to come out and make them hate me. But in the same sense, I can also make them laugh at me too, so they don't hate me completely. At least I'm entertaining them. So, and that's one of the things I've always strived on.
Nice. Yeah, I wish Chris would have been on the show tonight, Plano, because one of the first shows I was ever on, I was on about like 4 or 5 shows for Ken Spence, and then I met Plano. I did a Thanksgiving show for him, and then he invited me to wrestle for him in Arcadia. Mm-hmm. And I go in there, and I'm a face, And the day of the show, he's like, what do you do and this and that? And I'm like, I've been working face. I've only had like 5 or 6 matches this time, Tony. And he's like, what are you talking about? You got a New York jersey on. You have a New York accent. What are you talking about? You're a face. You're a heel. We're in the South. So he introduced me from the mean streets of Brooklyn, New York. That
nice.
night. I'm not from Brooklyn. I'm from Southampton. It's pretty. it's a beach town, but
right.
the mean streets of Brooklyn, and like he really played it up. And like after that, like I wrestled for him 4 times that weekend. And after that, I was like, man, I really like being a heel. I was like, I could get used to this. This is all right.
Yeah.
Like,
so easy.
But I do think, though, Tony, that anybody that starts out wrestling, even if it's only for a show, they should start out as a face because it is a lot harder than being a heel.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can master that, if you can do decent as being a face, you can definitely be a heel. But it's just one of those things that I think it's harder to do. So I think it's better to start out that way. So you've already done it, because you never know what show you're going to go to, and they need a face, and I've never worked face before.
Yeah.
I mean, never working face before is difficult. Never working heel before, hey, I'm just going to be an asshole to everybody. It'll be easy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not that easy to flip it the other way. You know what I mean?
Right.
So.
It's really not. And I remember when I first started, I think I probably wrestled 3 years before I ever entertained being a babyface. And my babyface run was only a very short time because the promoter at the time, he didn't really have anybody else to work with, and he knew that he could really have a nice program with me. And at the time, he was the promoter, but he didn't want people to know that he wrestled too. So he came in the way we played it up. He donned the hood and done a cowboy gimmick and called himself the Ghost Rider, and he and I were in a little tag team together. And of course, I get his cowbell and come off the second rope as he's holding the guy, and the guy breaks free. Boom! I hit him with the cowbell, and of course, I end up stiffing him because I never used a cowbell before, and I was still learning. So I stiffed him with the cowbell. And of course, we'd already talked about what was happening. I was going to hit him with the cowbell, get 3 count. And then when he came to, he was going to turn on me and pile drive me and leave me laying. And then the next week I would come back and, to get my revenge and get the people on me. But I had so much heat. Whenever he turned on me, the crowd cheered him. So it was like, oh, what's going on? But we were able to do a little bit more things to get people, behind me. But I remember laying there. I was laying in the ring with him, and because I hit him with the cowbell, and then boom, he went down, and then the other team, I can't remember if they gave me like a double drop kick or maybe they even hit me with the cowbell. I can't remember, but I remember laying in the ring beside of him, and I said, "Hey brother, that cowbell was stiff, wasn't it?" And he didn't say anything. He didn't say nothing. And I'm like, and he's a big dude. I'm like, oh, he's gonna kill me. He is gonna stiff me like I've never been stiffed before in my life. And I said, brother, I'm sorry. I really didn't mean to stiff you. And he goes, if you say one more word, I'm gonna kick your ass. And I'm like, okay, I won't say nothing else. And then he goes, all right, feet up and go to shake my hand. And I'm like, okay. So I get up, and I'm going to shake his hand. He pushes me away, and I'm like, okay. In my mind, I'm like, okay. At this point, he's gonna stiff the crap out of me, but he didn't. He took care of me. Then after the show, we got back after we did our spot, I get back to the dressing room. He's like, brother. He's like, when you come off the rope with that cowbell, man, he goes, you gotta pat it. I was like, sorry, I didn't know. And he had his good, nice little golf ball on his head. I felt bad, but what can I say, Willie? I was 18 years old. I didn't know hardly anything at that point. I was just it was kind of like having your first girlfriend, man. I was excited. I was actually in there, but I didn't know what I was doing.
Oh yeah,
it took me a few years. But
hey,
it was,
Tony.
But it was good stuff.
I was going to say, oh, yeah, that's awesome, man. It kind of reminds me of something. But, Tony, if you want to talk about the other thing some other time, I'm kind of enjoying, just reminiscing and talking about this stuff with you, man. But that's up to you. It's
Yeah,
your show.
no, man. Well, this is my build up. We're still going to get into our topic.
Okay, cool.
I'm just
All right.
I'm just building up. I'm just catching up
Nice.
with you and sharing some great stories, man. Yeah, Chris and I do this all the time. We have a topic we want to talk about, and then we talk about something else for 20 minutes before then, which is what I do. I ramble on sometimes, but
I wanted to share something with you real quick.
Yeah.
So like I was saying, I started as a face, then I'm working heel for about a year straight. I didn't do any face work. And I get a phone call from an old school guy. Do you remember Frankie Baker?
No, I don't think I ever met him.
Okay. He did some kind of, I don't know, the American Eagle or some kind of shit gimmick around here.
Uh-huh.
But he was also he was a race car driver, but he's one of these guys that kind of like, I don't know, he got trained by Ken Spence, but not all the way. And he just, he was okay in the ring.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, him and his brother, they were doing like a smoking guns type gimmick. They were cowboys, right?
Uh-huh.
And he calls me and he's like, "Hey man, my brother can't make the show tonight. Can you come with me to, I don't think it was in Charlotte, but where was George doing the EWA back then, right? The Exodus?
Mooresville. He was doing Mooresville, and he was doing Kings Mountain.
Yeah, I think it might have been Mooresville. It was in a church. And so he's like, "You got a pair of blue jeans?" I'm like, "Yeah, of course, man." He's like, "All right, what size shoe do you have?" And I was like, "A 10. This motherfucker shows up with like cowboy boots for me, which were his brothers. They didn't fit me.
Uh-huh.
They were like way too tight. He brought like a cowboy belt with the with the big whatever the heck, I don't even know
big buckle, yeah,
and a cowboy hat. And so I was Willie Baker for the night. And
that's
of course,
funny.
I had to be a face.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so we wrestled against a couple other guys. Joey, Sylvia, Spank.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
Do you remember Sage? Did you ever wrestle with him at all back in the day? Guy by the name of Sage.
Maybe.
That was one of Ken's guys too.
Maybe. Mm-hmm.
He was pretty good, but so we wrestled 2 matches against them that night. It was like 2 of George's TV tapings, but so I had to end up being a face, even though I hadn't been a face in like a year, but it kind of helped that, you start out that way. So I just wanted to tell you that. But so yeah, for one night I was Willie Baker, just throw that out there for you.
Oh, that's great.
Cowboy.
Yeah. I even done that one time, like later on, the Ghost Rider and I done a tag team, and he was the Ghost Rider and I was the Midnight Rider. And we were like, but back then we wasn't really doing tag team stuff. We were doing like battle royals and stuff like that. But yeah, it's kind of funny when I go back and look over the years of all the crazy gimmicks that I've done. Hey, listen, while I'm sitting here recording, I just get a text message from Chris Plano. It says, "Hey, did you forget me?" And I'm like, "Oh, no." So let me see if I can get him on the show. This is gonna be funny. This is his first time live on the podcast, and I'm actually adding in another call. So let me let me get him on the phone. So you folks stand by, and Willie and I will be back with Chris Plano, and I know Chris will have some funny stories. So here we go. I'll be right back.
Definitely.
Chris Plano.
Yes, how are you?
Man, we are live on the podcast. I told everybody this is the first time in podcast history that I have brought on another call live on the air. So here we are, man. And I got Willie G on the other line, man. What's going on?
Oh, man. Terrific, Tony. So great to be back. Sorry, I'm running late here tonight. And I know you said you were going to have Willie on this week, and I know we're up for an exciting show.
Yeah.
Hey, Chris, man. Glad you're here, buddy. Glad to hear your voice, man.
Oh, same here, man. I'm just running really late today, and it's been a week, and the days are rolling faster than I can keep up with.
It's funny, Chris. Right before you text me and said, "Hey, did you forget me?" Willie and I were just talking, and Willie was telling me about the time that that you gave him a break and brought him in and had him work heel for the first time as he was wearing his Brooklyn T-shirt.
I was telling him it was Arcadia. And,
yes.
I think you'll probably remember you were doing some kind of like a TV taping, like pilot type thing, and
yes,
and so what do you do? And I told you I was a face and stuff. What the hell are you talking about? You're wearing a New York shirt. You got an accent. You're a heel, man. Forget that. And then you introduced me from the mean streets of Brooklyn, and after that, I always wanted to be a heel. So that was kind of awesome, man. I appreciate it.
Okay, well, there's some creative going on there in the back as we're rolling along. God, I think I just had a flashback, for God's sakes, to that evening.
Hey, that's how you got to do it on the fly sometimes, man.
I know, but yeah, those are some great times, and sometimes some of the best ideas come from when the wheels are spinning 100 miles an hour on the fly.
Yep, you're right about that.
Oh my God, what year would that had to be? What I would say 98, 99?
It was actually 2000.
2000. Okay, I knew it was somewhere like 2000. So even a year later. Okay, well, all right, yeah, that was. Those are some good times, man. Those. It still seems like yesterday, though. We're talking, some 20 some odd years ago.
Yeah, you're right about that, man. It's definitely been a while.
Yeah, but, man. It's crazy how like the years go by so fast, but yet it seems like everything was yesterday. I mean, at least it seems like that for me sometimes.
Definitely.
I know. It's just it's crazy. The wrestling business has ebbed and flowed through the years and decades, but I don't know. I see what I see today, and I embrace it, but I don't know if it'll ever be like the old days or the days when I was active, or I don't know if it'll ever be like that again. I mean, we're with social media now and everything else. I don't know. It just doesn't seem like it's the same.
Guys, it's so funny. I'm still somewhat active and working on some of these shows, and I sit back sometime in the dressing room and I laugh because I look around the dressing room and I see what the guys are doing now compared to what the guys were doing whenever we were running hard, and it blows my mind because like back whenever we were running hard, the guys are in the back and they're just talking about wrestling. They're talking about the rats or whatever. They've conversation. Like now, you go to the dressing room and they're in the young guys are in the back and they're posing. They got they're taking pictures for like you say, Chris, social media, or they got their little cell phones or playing games on their cell phones, or they're and I was on a show a while back and I heard this guy go, "Man, I'm glad this building's got air conditioning." And I almost wanted to say, "What are you kidding me?" Like, think about how many shows that we done in an armory with no air, no heat. It was either cold as crap in the wintertime or hot as hell in the summertime. And this guy's talking about, "I'm glad this building's got air conditioning." Are you kidding? Those guys wouldn't last a day on the things we used to do back in the day.
Oh, no.
Yeah, you're right about that.
Absolutely not. They haven't paid their dues.
No, but on the flip side of things, it's probably a good thing social media wasn't out back those days, Chris, because I probably would have gotten divorced a whole lot quicker from my first wife than I did then. You know what I mean?
Right.
Oh gosh, the things we used to do when we were younger.
Yeah, but back then, I also think the girls put up with a lot more. Today, it's like,
oh yeah.
It's like one and done.
Yeah, like, oh what? Oh, you want to talk to her? Okay, what's this? Tinder, Plenty of Fit, all these dating sites that these girls can get. Yeah, you're done.
Everything is a one button push away.
Yeah. It's crazy. Well, guys, I could sit here and talk to you guys all night about the good old days, but I know we kind of wanted to touch on the subject. And we wanted to kind of talk about, and it's been a while since Chris and I have broke down a show. So I thought Will and I were talking a couple of days ago, and Willie had suggested us do a breakdown of WWE's WrestleMania 17. With as you guys know, that show took place April the 1st, 2001. Incidentally, it was the very first WrestleMania to ever be held in Texas, which I thought was really cool. But a lot of great matches on this card. The main event being Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on The Rock. But me being old school, my favorite thing on this show was the gimmick battle royal, which I thought was very entertaining. I did love that. But right now I want to, we'll start from the first match and kind of do a little breakdown, and see, what you guys, memories or thoughts were on those matches. But before we get into that, just a little background on this. This show took place, like I said, in Houston, Texas, at the Reliant Astrodome, with an attendance of 67,925 people, with a buy rate of 1,040,000. The tagline being "Houston, we have a problem," and of course, it wasn't much of a problem because back in those days, the WWE had some great talent on there and some great storylines. I mean, how much better can you get than Stone Cold Steve Austin against The Rock? That match went 28 minutes, 8 seconds, and we'll get into that later on. But, guys, starting out, opening match, the X Factor, Justin Credible and X-Pac, with Albert taking on Grandmaster Sexay and Steve Blackman. What a weird tag team that was. Willie, I'll start with you. What's your thoughts on that match?
Well, I mean, I think that there's a reason why that one didn't make TV. I'm pretty sure that was a dark match.
Yeah.
Just because that's like a kind of a goulash of wrestlers. But Tony, I did want to point out something real quick. There's two things to remember about this show. The first thing is that Vince McMahon had purchased WCW, I mean, like less than 2 weeks before this show.
Right.
And the other thing is that Shawn Michaels was kind of like back doing some things. He was injured, so he was retired, but he was like a personality, and he got fired actually the week of this show. So those are two like little caveats to remember going into this show. And plus, it was in Texas, so they wanted Shawn Michaels to be on the show, almost like a hosting role, I guess.
Right.
But they fired him the week of because he came to a show, and I guess he was pretty messed up, and he passed out in Vince McMahon's office on the floor. They say that Triple H is the one that told Vince McMahon, "Hey, he's in your office, passed out drunk," and that actually caused the rift between Triple H and Shawn Michaels, where they didn't talk for a few years.
Wow!
So I just wanted to point that out.
Yeah, that's great backstory. Chris, what are your thoughts on this this crazy match?
God, it's like it's just, I don't know. It's not a very long match. Not even 3 minutes. This one, and I don't know. I kind of look at it, X-Pac there, as the 1, 2, 3 kid in the WWF back in the day, and Grandmaster Sexay, Jerry Lawler's kid, and. I don't know. It just seemed like it was just something to get the crowd in their seats, and they wrestled right there. It's probably one of the shortest tag matches I've ever would have seen.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It just seemed like guys getting some quick work more than anything else. I don't think there's any storyline behind this. I don't think there's anything really behind it.
Yeah. As a matter of fact, I think this match actually took place on Sunday Night Heat. So it wasn't, it wasn't even actually on the pay-per-view. Now this next match, man, I would love to see this match even to today, for the WWE, of course, back then WWF Intercontinental title, champion Chris Jericho taking on William Regal. Man, talk about two great guys right there. Great talents. Jericho and William Regal. Man, I always loved William Regal in WCW when he was Lord Steven Regal. No matter whatever he does, that has always been my favorite work of his. And especially when they brought in Bill Dundee to be his manager as Sir William. It was great, man. I love the I love the whole English gimmick that they had going on there. But now we're in WWE. He's William Regal, not Lord Steven, but he's now William, taking on Chris Jericho. Chris, I'll start with you on this one. What's your thoughts on this match?
I mean, great match. I mean, two great workers. Obviously, a much younger Chris Jericho than what we see, today on television with AEW wrestling and what he's done throughout his career. And I mean, William Regal, one of the, toughest guys in the business and one of the best wrestlers from a skill standpoint. I mean, you're going to get a great match. I mean, really was the Intercontinental title that kicked off, this pay-per-view, which, is rare for that to even happen at a WWF pay-per-view or WWE pay-per-view. So, I mean, to come in and for Jericho to get the win, retains the title. I mean, listen, those guys could have wrestled, an hour if they wanted to.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
In the ring, just from their conditioning standpoint, and Regal could probably go all night. So, a great match, and if you're a fan of wrestling, you're definitely going to be a fan, of that particular match, especially from a scientific standpoint.
Yeah, for sure. Willie, your thoughts?
Yeah, Chris definitely hit the nail on the head with that one. I mean, back then when the Intercontinental title was prestigious, for it to lead off the pay-per-view was pretty big and pretty crazy for the time period. Now the Intercontinental title, it really doesn't mean a whole lot. But yeah, they definitely could have used a few more minutes, 7 minutes, 7.5 minutes, whatever. It was okay as far as time goes, but I would have rather seen them in like a good 20-minute match, because those guys, technically, like you said, William Regal, man, that's one of the best technical wrestlers, we've ever seen probably. And Chris Jericho, I mean, he's just got like all the charisma. He can sell that match with anybody. Mm-hmm. And, I totally agree, though, about William Regal, what you were saying about him when he was in WCW. I always liked the Blue Blood stuff with him was it Dave Taylor? Was that his name?
Yeah,
Taylor?
But the best Blue Blood tag team was when they had beautiful Bobby Eaton, who became Earl Robert Eaton in that team, talking about that, I loved how they built up to making him a Blue Blood. Steven Regal took him around England and took him around all these fancy places, trying to take that Alabama country boy Bobby Eaton and make him dignified. And my favorite part in those vignettes that they did, you guys might remember this, but they were at a like the first time Steven Regal takes Bobby to this real fancy English restaurant, and he's telling Bobby order the wine, and Steven Regal orders he orders wine, and he puts his napkin in his lap. Bobby takes the napkin, sticks it like inside of his shirt, and then the waitress goes, "Oh, what kind of wine would you like?" And Bobby goes, "Well, do you got any Boone's Farm or Ripple?" It's like, I was laughing when he said that. And then he takes Bobby shopping for clothes, and Bobby comes out. And of course, at this time, they're working off movies, but the movie Jim Carrey, The Mask, had just came out. And here comes Bobby Eaton out of the dressing room wearing like this bright yellow suit. And he looks at Steven Regal and he goes, "Smoking." Just looks freaking hilarious, man. And then my last vignette that I like the best, Steven takes Bobby Eaton to L.A. and they're going around all the sites, and they end up going and standing in front of O.J. Simpson's house, right? And why Steven Regal is telling Bobby about how dirty the streets of L.A. are and how bad this town is. Bobby's over there like pulling a glove out of the bushes, and he pulls out a knife. It was just so funny how they capitalized on everything that was going on in the world and incorporate it into these vignettes to make them entertaining. But I love that. But you're right. Even whenever he brought in Squire David Taylor and that Blue Bloods, that was a good tag team as well.
Yep, Absolutely.
Good stuff there. Sorry, I didn't mean to take your thunder on that, but man, anytime I hear something about Bobby Eaton, I get so excited because he was such a great guy. I miss that dude.
He was a real nice guy, man.
Man,
I did some shows with him. Very, very cool guy, man.
Mm-hmm. I remember one time I booked him for one of my shows, and I'm like, "Hey, Bobby, what are you gonna do tonight?" He goes, "I don't know. You're the booker. You tell me." I'm like, "Brother, you're Bobby Eaton. We'll do whatever you want." He goes, "Brother, you're the booker. I'm gonna do everything you tell me." I'm like, "Okay." And then I remember in that match, we did a tag team, and so Bobby and I were the baby faces, and we worked George South and this other dude. And I remember I was in there, and Chris and Willie. I'm sure you guys remember this, but I do my arm drags a lot like Ricky Steamboat. So I'm in there, and I'm giving George and this other guy these arm drags, and Bobby comes in, and he goes, "Oh, wait a minute, I'm sorry." He goes, "I want to take that arm drag too." He was my partner.
Oh wow!
I thought that was hilarious. It was great, but yeah, Bobby was such a nice guy, man. He was a great guy. All right, getting back to this to our show. So the next couple matches, I'm gonna kind of skip over because they're just quick matches unless you guys want to touch on them. But I'm gonna skip down a couple matches and go to Eddie Guerrero with Perry Saturn taking on Test.
Tony, hold on 1 second. I did want to point something out to you guys. I don't know if you've ever heard this, but I heard an interview with Raven one time talking about that match with Kane and the Big Show.
Yeah.
And so during the match, they're doing the hardcore match. They're all over the arena.
Uh-huh.
Well, Raven commandeers a golf cart, and Big Show jumps in the back of it, and Raven is driving he's going to try to spin around and hit Kane.
Yeah.
But when he did it, he took the curve too tight, and he banged into this fence, and the wheels got stuck between the fence and the side of the cement, so it's kind of teetering.
Uh-huh.
And right underneath that fence, and you can see it in the video, was the main power supply for their video. If the fence would have given,
uh-huh,
the WrestleMania feed would have been cut because it would have broken that wire.
Oh, wow.
You could see it plain as day in the video. The guys after that, the video guys "What are you doing, man? You almost took us off the air. You got to be careful." And like I said, you can go back and watch it because I have. And you could see the big main supply wire is right there underneath the wheel. And it's
oh
being
my
held
gosh,
up like nothing. So I just wanted to throw that out.
Oh,
there real quick.
I appreciate you. I appreciate it because I never heard that before. That's pretty cool. He got very lucky that he didn't do that because you imagine what would have happened to him. He probably would have been fired and fined and everything else. Holy moly!
Yeah, could you imagine the biggest show up to that point ever? And it goes out after the third match.
Right?
Match.
Yeah. That definitely would have been tough. So next, going into Kurt Angle taking on Chris Benoit, 14 minutes 10 seconds. Willie, we'll start with you. What's your thoughts on this match?
Technically, I don't think you could have gotten two guys more evenly matched up or even better. Technically, those guys, Bret Hart, William Regal, those are some of the best technical wrestlers ever. Kurt Angle and Chris Benoit, that's a great match. I think Kurt Angle here had just come off of dropping the title to The Rock a few months earlier. So they were really trying to keep him strong and keep him in that, WWF championship picture at that time. And, man, as far as personality goes, Kurt Angle was amazing. Benoit, he was just a mat technician. He wasn't very charismatic, didn't have a whole lot of character, but Kurt Angle, you could have the dude, I know this sounds like, whatever, but he could have wrestled a broomstick and it would have been an awesome match because of his facial expressions, because of the things that he'd say. That dude, he was just awesome, man. One of the quickest guys I've ever seen ascend right to the top. He'd only been wrestling, I think, for a year at this point.
Yeah.
And he's in a pretty featured match at WrestleMania. So pretty awesome. I think it was a very good match. Yeah, they gave him 14 minutes and they put on a clinic.
Yeah, I always like Kurt Angle's work. Chris, what are your thoughts?
I mean, another match that could easily went an hour, probably.
Oh yeah, both those guys conditioning,
rock and roll it.
Yeah.
I was always Kurt Angle. I mean, I was never a big Kurt Angle fan throughout his career. I guess maybe because of the amateur background or it was the Olympic thing. But I love Chris Benoit as a wrestler. I mean, obviously everyone we know the story about Chris Benoit, but a great technical wrestler in the ring and a guy that could. He could wrestle with anyone in the ring. His size, big, small, it didn't matter. He was a guy that always made people look good in the ring. I just enjoyed watching him wrestle and really was a great time in his career at this point.
Yeah, as the years progressed, and whenever Kurt Angle started doing the stuff with Stone Cold. And they were doing all this back, in the dressing rooms things where Kurt was like playing the guitar and singing, and man, it was so entertaining. The stuff that they came up with, and like I never knew that Kurt had that comedic side about him, but he did, and it worked. And I used to love seeing him and Stone Cold, and here's Kurt Angle wearing that goofy little kid's straw cowboy hat and a little guitar, and he's singing Jimmy Crack Corn, and man, just great funny stuff. Even now, this day I go back and watch it, and I still laugh. I'm like, man, that this guy is an Olympic gold medalist, but yet he's he's funny too. So I enjoyed that stuff. And again,
the milk truck is
yeah.
Awesome.
Good stuff, man. Then now we go into a street fight, where it's going to be Shane McMahon with Linda McMahon taking on Mr. McMahon with Stephanie and Trish Stratus. Street fight with Mick Foley as a special guest referee. This match goes 14 minutes 11 seconds. Chris, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on a street fight between the McMahon family?
Sounds like a family feud to me.
Yeah, right.
Throw Mick Foley in there and a hot Trish Stratus, and we're rolling with the night, right?
Right.
That one.
Sure.
I'm presuming at this point. I don't really recall this particular storyline. I'm presuming the McMahons are feuding at some level at this point, if they're having this tag team match from some inner family differences, and Stephanie and Trish in there. Trish is hot. It speaks for itself, and
right
with Foley in there, I mean, it's kind of like Foley's probably like, let's get this over with, man. I don't know what's going on here, but
it was right when, like I said, Vince McMahon had just bought WCW.
Right.
Storyline that Shane changed the paperwork so he owned WCW.
Oh, okay. All right,
so
right.
Now they're going to fight over the two companies.
Probably. I don't know. I mean, I can't recall Linda McMahon wrestling too many times. It might have been only one of just maybe one or two times she might have wrestled. I'm not.
She was in the wheelchair at this point. She was
I remember that.
Oh,
yeah.
She was at ringside. Okay, I didn't know.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I thought she was in the match. I didn't know Shane with Linda. Okay, I don't know. It was just like I don't know. It was just I don't know. I don't really recall the storyline all that much at this point. But I mean, it's for a McMahon thing. I mean, they've done it all as far as all different storylines and putting everyone in the family in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, kind of different. Now, we gonna move on to.
Tony.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead, Willie.
Say, it's pretty crazy that they took 14 minutes, but they only gave Chris Jericho and Regal 7.5 minutes.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, come on, guys. You could have given a couple of those minutes. You could have given a little bit of that to Eddie Guerrero. I mean, yeah.
Even
the China versus Ivory match that was before this was only 2.5 minutes. And, I thought that was a pretty cool thing. That was like China's first real time where they tried to make her like a sex symbol.
Yeah.
Which they did a good job with,
for sure.
When he started out. But yeah, they took 14 minutes. They had like the third or fourth longest match on the show. That's pretty wild.
Yeah. Definitely not good. Now the next match is probably one of my favorites on this show, besides the gimmick battle royal. I love that one. But Edge and Christian taking on the Dudley Boys and the Hardy Boys. tables, ladders, and chairs for the WWF Tag Team title. This match goes 15 minutes, 50 seconds, and these 6 guys hold nothing back. Probably one of the best table, ladder, chair matches of all time. Willie, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts and memories on this one?
That's easily the best TLC match ever. I think that what really added to this match is Edge and Christian came out with Rhino. The Dudleys brought out Spike Dudley. The Hardys brought out Lita. And at times it was like 3-on-3-on-3 instead of 2-on-2-on-2.
Right.
I know that the Hardy Boys are New Dimension Wrestling alumni, some of Chris's guys from back in the day. But, man, this match was unbelievable, man. The timing in this thing was crazy. The stunts was crazy. Like, you watch that match, and it's, like, flawless, man. For a TLC match, it's basically flawless. It's crazy. You know, as far as ladder matches and all that, they always talked about how Razor and Shawn Michaels, set the precedent. Well, this really raised the bar, and I don't think anybody's been able to get to that bar since.
No, I agree with you 100%. Chris, your boys are in this match. What are your thoughts?
I mean, that's where they made all their big money, the Hardys, in this kind of match, especially Jeff. I mean, with just some of the crazy stuff he's done, nothing against Matt, at all, but both of them, I mean, put Edge and Christian and the Hardys together, and you're gonna get a great match, no matter what arena it's in or who they're wrestling for, and the Dudleys on top of it. And it's what the people wanted to see during that time, during the WWF era, and the high flying stuff was in, and those guys were just taking it all in. And I loved where it's placed on the match. It's towards the end of the pay-per-view, not at the very end of the pay-per-view, but it's in the right spot for the tag team championship, and really, giving it its props, and and it always tickled me pink. You see the guys on the independent level who were working for you at one time, or even just if they're in the area working, or you're on a show with them, and then you see them on a stage like that. It just makes you, feel real good. And, Matt and Jeff and so many of the success stories of the guys that, came out of this area and made it on the national level, but nothing like what they have done.
Yeah. I agree, Chris. I think, from the early or late 90s, early 2000s, there's been a lot of talent came out of North Carolina. But I'd have to say, from the independent circuit, Hardy Boys will definitely have to be up there as probably the most popular and the most successful that came from that era. I mean, look at them. I mean, they're still on TV, and they're still drawing money, and they're still reinventing themselves and staying fresh. This day and time, that takes a lot of talent. So kudos to the Hardy Boys. Now,
I'll tell you, if I could say one other thing there, if possible, about the Hardys, and when they were tinkering back and forth with the WWF in '98, and then when they really exploded in '99 and finally signed with them, they still had about a half a dozen shows that they committed working for me. Hey, they held up on all those bookings, man.
Wow.
Even though
that's amazing.
Man, they didn't back out. They even, and it wasn't just me, they were with other promotions too. And they told them, hey, listen, we've got commitments, but they held, and they showed up, man. And of course, by that time it was just, people knew already what was going on. It was just craziness the last couple of shows.
Yeah.
And then we knew that they were going at that point, but it was an exciting, a couple of months, but they honored, those independent bookings, even though it was they were one leg over the hurdle at that point too.
And and that right there in itself says a lot for them to, for them to stick around and do something like that too. It's just amazing. I did
want to add one other thing real quick.
Yeah.
So one thing I forgot about that Shane McMahon and McMahon match was that ECW guys for the show. It was like Lance Storm, Sean Stasiak, I think like Mark Jindrak and Chuck Palumbo. it was basically some of like, the leftover WCW guys. So they were supposed to get involved in the Vince McMahon match and help Shane McMahon win the match. But Sean Stasiak got on the radio a few days before and said, yeah, we'll be at WrestleMania and we'll be watching Shane McMahon versus Vince McMahon real closely. And, like, Vince, like, lost his shit because he didn't want anybody to know they were even going to be there. And, like, apparently they were, like, on the verge of firing them. They just made them sit in, like, the skybox. But that's why Sean Stasiak basically just got his ass, for his whole tenure that time.
Wow.
That was his second run. He almost got fired before he ever even got seen on camera, just for running his mouth to a radio station.
Wow.
So yeah, I'd forgotten about that.
Yeah, that's one of the things I've always heard is like you got to watch what you say because you never know when they're listening. So, that right there speaks volumes. Now our next match is one of my favorites. It says here it went 3 minutes 50 seconds. 3 minutes 50 seconds, but I can't believe that because I know it took most of these guys longer than that just to walk to the ring. But
exactly.
but we're talking about the gimmick battle royal. In this battle royal, we had some of the classic gimmicks from the old days of the yesteryear, or what they called. And I liked how they brought out Mean Gene Okerlund and Bobby the Brain Heenan to commentate this. But the participants in this gimmick battle royal was the Bushwhackers, Duke the Dumpster Drosy, Doink the Clown, Nikolai Volkov, Tugboat, The Goon, Earthquake, The Gobbledygooker, Brother Love, Michael P.S. Hayes, One Man Gang, Kamala, Kimchi, Jim Cornette, The Repo Man, Hillbilly Jim, and Sergeant Slaughter, the Iron Sheik. And all these guys were involved in this gimmick battle royal. Of course, the Iron Sheik went over, and guys, I have to admit, I think the only reason why he went over, Chris, you could probably attest to this since you hung out with him a lot. The guy's hips were so bad he couldn't go over the top rope, so they had to put him over, right?
Yeah, they probably so, man. I mean, how you gonna? I mean, Sheik's not gonna take a bump like that, and
right.
His knees and hips and everything. I mean, probably so. I mean, and then. And, who's a nicer guy than Hillbilly Jim? I mean,
right.
Sure, Sheik, whatever you want to do. Because if not, Sheik could probably stretch.
Well, he probably
in the middle of the ring.
No. Let's be honest. He was in the back, and they said, "Hillbilly Jim, you're going over on the Sheik," and the Sheik says, "Not tonight. I make you humble."
Yeah, but that was definitely a who's who in a gimmick battle royal. But yeah, I would say so. I don't think Sheik. I don't know if Sheik would go through the middle rope, the top rope.
Yeah.
Hey,
good stuff,
Tony. This match, I actually watched this match today. I watched like 3 of these matches today, and the match actually was right there at 3 minutes and 50 seconds. But like you said, the introductions took 8 minutes.
Right.
Really a 12-minute match, but the first part is like at about like 3 minutes and 20 seconds maybe. Mean Gene Okerlund says, he's like, I've never seen this many guys get eliminated this quickly before. I thought that was hilarious.
Yeah, that was a shoot right there.
You got pretty much everybody eliminated already.
And you know what? That's one of the things that I loved about Gene Okerlund and Bobby Heenan. If you go back, like now you're in the wrestling business, but you go back and watch some of their early stuff in the 80s, and like they were using like inside terms. And nobody, I know I didn't at the time. I didn't know what it meant, and like Bobby Heenan's always said some of the funny stuff, but I'll never forget, in '95 when Smoky Mountain Wrestling had shut down, WCW was doing a pay-per-view in Asheville, North Carolina for the Fall Brawl, and Tony Schiavone, as they came on the air, Tony Schiavone goes, "We're coming to you live from the Smoky Mountains, live wrestling here in the Smoky Mountains." And Bobby Heenan goes, "Tony, now you know nobody wrestles in the Smoky Mountains anymore." And that was his way of shooting, saying Smoky Mountain Wrestling shut down.
Oh, man.
But Bobby Heenan was always, he was so witty, man, so funny. And like he would shoot, and you wouldn't even know he was shooting. It was so funny.
Oh, definitely.
I loved
during
it.
This match. Yeah, me too. Hey, during this match, got introduced like kind of early, and they get all the other guys coming out, and like right before the match is about to start, 6 minutes probably after the Iron Sheik had started walking down to the ring, Bobby Heaney goes, "Well, good news, the Iron Sheik's almost to the ring now."
Oh my God!
So close.
Yeah, that's Bobby Heaney, man. That guy was so funny. I swear, I loved him. Now, getting into our last two matches, which is probably the greatest matches on the card. First off, The Undertaker taking on Triple H. Singles match. This match goes 18 minutes, 27 seconds. We can go back through history and watch and look. I don't think we've ever will and ever have saw a bad match between The Undertaker and Triple H. Chris, I'll start with you on this one. What are your thoughts?
I mean, you know, you're going to get a great match. A great match. I mean, The Undertaker, I mean, you know, elusive as ever in the ring. I mean, you know, Triple H coming into this match. I mean, you're going to get, it's a main event match in any arena across the country. And there's no title on the line either, you know, in this particular match. So you're going to get a great hard fought wrestling, a singles wrestling match here with two of the best in the business. I mean, The Undertaker, I mean, you know, whether he's heel or baby in any of his roles is going to be over. And, you know, Triple H at this time, not sure exactly where in his career I mean, I know he's great in his career, but again, you know, The Undertaker, I mean, you know, monstrous. I mean, I think even at this time too, if I'm not mistaken, this is in 2001, correct? Yep. This pay-per-view. So Flair was there a couple of years earlier in WCW, right?
Right.
I believe, in WWF. Right, because Undertaker was feuding with Flair, I think, a year earlier prior to this, roughly, if I'm not mistaken, or 2 years. But, I mean, he was just so over. I mean, at that point, it was just like, I mean, I even saw that particular match when Flair wrestled him during that era. So he was just monstrous.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, in the ring. And this is a main event on any pay-per-view at any time.
Right, for sure. Willie, your thoughts on Undertaker and Triple H matches? This one, incidentally?
It was definitely a good match. I actually just looked it up. These guys wrestled each other like 86 times for the WWF, I think, in televised matches, which is insane to me.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, man. Like, you know how there's some people you meet in life and you're just like, that guy?
Yeah.
I've always felt that way about Triple H. And I actually have met him, but not that I didn't like him. I've never been a fan of him as a wrestler. About him that hurt me, and that just made me feel like he didn't belong in the same ring with certain talent. He was good. He was really good. But some 10 years earlier, he would have never been more than the Intercontinental Champion. It was just the fact that he was, you know, the boss's daughter's boyfriend, husband, whatever he was at this time. The Undertaker it's like you go and see I've seen The Undertaker live probably 20 times in my life. You go see The Undertaker wrestle, it's an attraction.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's an event just to see this guy come to the ring. You like get goosebumps. I mean, The Undertaker, holy cow. And just looking at what he came from in his earlier career and WCW really not knowing a whole lot what to do with him, and him becoming like one of the most like iconic figures in WWF history, man, what a star he was, man, really. And this was him, like, really, I think, in some of his best work. He was doing the biker gimmick at this point. Right. Is that right, Tony?
Yeah. He was just starting it. But yeah.
This was, I think, it was some of his best work. I was a big fan. He had just left that up. Right, because he was doing the ministry gimmick, which was okay. But I liked the biker gimmick when he switched over to the biker gimmick. Pretty awesome, man.
Yeah.
Being The Undertaker and winning another match at WrestleMania, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's one of the things that I like about The Undertaker and a lot of guys, but especially how he started, you know, the Undertaker gimmick, the original Undertaker gimmick, wearing the gray and the black, and then taking a little time off, coming back with the purple, which made him seem even more larger than life. And then he went from that to like you said, with the Ministry of Darkness doing that gimmick, and that was a whole different level. Then the biker gimmick, and then back to old school Undertaker. He was always able to keep reinventing himself and making himself stay fresh, and also keep that special attraction gimmick going. It worked for sure. Now we're into our main event, guys. The match everybody's paid to see. Stone Cold Steve Austin taking on The Rock. No DQ match for the WWF Championship. This match goes 28 minutes 8 seconds, and I was listening to an interview the other day. The Rock was talking about how whenever him and Stone Cold got together, it was just instant chemistry. He's like, over the years, as a wrestler, a performer, you'll work with so many people, but just a few, you'll have that chemistry where you don't really have to work hard. You just know. And he said that every time he worked with Stone Cold pushed him to the limit. That he wouldn't settle for a mediocre match. It had to be, it had to steal the show. And I believe, this match right here holds true to that. These guys definitely tore the house down for 28 minutes, 8 seconds. Great show. And Stone Cold, will, go on to win the WWF title right there in his home state of Texas. Willie, I'll start with you. What are your thoughts on this one?
Man, this is, in my opinion, an instant classic. It was. The Rock came in as the champion. He was the face during this match. Stone Cold was kind of in between. You didn't really know what his deal was. They had the whole Deborah thing where she was with The Rock and then she got hurt, and they made it known that she was Stone Cold's wife at the time. Just great stuff, man. And I actually want to ask Chris a question, and Tony, feel free to chime in too, but Chris is more of a businessman on the wrestling side of things than you are, Tony. But Chris, Stone Cold Steve Austin versus The Rock made the most money out of any feud the WWE has ever had. I mean, it headlined 2 WrestleMania. We had the featured time at WrestleMania 19. And the 2 that they headlined are the number 5 and I think number 3 highest had. I mean, do you think this feud is the one that they made the most money on?
I mean, I would have to say so. I mean, maybe even on a house show level, possibly as well, when they were not even cameras in front of both of them, which was big money too, as well. But I would say so. I mean, when you start thinking of long-standing feuds that were going on, if it's not number 1, I would say it's definitely top 3. But I would say so as it is. Now, I mean, are there other matches maybe that could have drawn more potentially? Sure. I mean, we look at WrestleMania. I think everyone always turns back to WrestleMania 3. But again, that wasn't a long-standing feud. But I think there's certain pockets. But from a feud standpoint, I mean, it's tough to argue against. Right. They were just so over. I mean, the whole thing was just over. The whole attitude, whatever, the era, Austin, I mean, and The Rock, the skill level. I mean, and really the fans are really what made the match. Those guys, all they had to do was just touch each other and the place was going crazy. When Tony and I talk about Ric Flair here in the 80s, I mean, you blew on Ric Flair and the whole arena went crazy. But it was just, it's just, they just had that chemistry in the ring and the fans just added to it. And the build up.
Yep. Yeah, it was always great. I don't think I ever saw a bad Steve Austin Rock match. It's just Steve Austin, he knew his job. He was the top guy. sold more T-shirts than Hulk Hogan or anybody else in the WWE, for as that matter goes. So he had a reputation to uphold. So if he's outselling these T-shirts, then his work in the ring had to be great, crisp, right on point.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that he ever disappointed at all in all the matches I ever saw him work there in the WWE. Even there at the end, whenever he was going through all that stuff with his divorce and everything, he was still, with two messed up knees, he was still, out there doing his thing and doing it good,
And a messed up neck. Yep.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the neck too. Yeah, for sure. Good stuff.
Like Chris was saying, and I didn't even think about that. I mean, these guys were going at it all the way back in like '97 over the Intercontinental title, and then their feud ended in 2002. But you remember when The Rock threw Stone Cold's Stone Cold's Intercontinental title off the bridge.
Right. Yeah.
You remember that?
Yeah.
And, through all the scuba gear and everything. So man, these guys went through a lot of stuff together. And made each other a whole lot of money, man. I'm sure Vince loved this, and get some of this bottle again.
Yeah. Guys, one of the things I miss the most is like if you could go like now, and I'm not knocking wrestling. I'm not. I love it still, but if you ask me any questions about what's happening on TV right now, I couldn't tell you because I don't watch it. But I do know that and I've heard a lot of people say this. That Attitude Era and the era of The Rock and Stone Cold and The Undertaker and Triple H and Shawn Michaels and Kane and those kind of guys, that type and that era will probably never be seen again. Because back then, those guys were like like you turned on TV back then, and you wanted to see what all those guys were doing because they all were doing stuff that was like, oh my gosh, Now it's like, like the way they do the matches now because of television, like everything is like to the T, to the minute, to the second, to the you know what I mean. So it's hard to have that the emotions and the feelings that we had in the 90s and even in the 80s now because what they do on TV, it's not emotion, it's not passion, it's scripted. And it's very hard to, as a fan, to pull that emotion out because there's no emotion there. Does that make sense?
Oh yeah,
right.
And that's that's kind of how I feel. And that's probably why I don't really watch it watch it on TV anymore. And the fact that I'm busy with a wife and the kids and everything else. But still though, I mean, it's just that's a lost era, a lost time, and I don't think we'll ever see that again. Now, we are seeing some of that, from what I understand, coming from AEW. They definitely got some stuff going on up there, and I definitely want to start tuning in and watch it. I just got to find the time, guys. It's just like I don't have any time.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Understand that,
but good stuff.
They're doing some great stuff. I mean, AEW is doing some great stuff. It's I'll be honest, I have been watching a little bit of it. I really like it because they do the rerun again at 11 o'clock off of the 8 to 10 o'clock show. So if you miss it, it does replay at 11. Mm-hmm. But it is somewhat cult like. It's a little. I don't want to say it's a little ECW-ish. They tried a little bit of that. The thing that's bothering me about AEW and it's scaring me just a little bit is they're picking up talent that either WWE is letting go. They're bringing in the old timers from the WCW days, and I some of it's like, okay, do they really need those guys? I mean,
right?
They got Arn Anderson there and Tully Blanchard, and it's like, and I know Cody Rhodes wants to pay homage his father and all that stuff, and I get all that a little bit, and some of that's playing into it, but I think at the end of the day, they got to break that stigma a little bit, because they're really touring on a national level now, AEW. They really are. They're not really here just in the Southeast, even though they're in Jacksonville, Florida. So I don't know. That just sits in the back of my mind a little bit. And then it's a little weird to see like Daniel Bryan in there and the Big Show was there. And then, they're picking up these guys. The other guy they picked up. Mark Henry. And so that part's a little weird. And now they got CM Punk, so, and I know they want to get in the ring with this is a little bit personal too with Vince McMahon and, my whole take on this is this. If Vince really wanted those guys, he would still have them.
Yeah,
right? So,
I agree.
If he really wanted Daniel Bryan, he would have kept him. If he really wanted CM Punk and those guys. So, I don't know. It's just my opinion on things. I could be totally out in left field here, but I still think they got to shake that WCW stigma a little bit because they got to create their own brand.
Yeah,
right.
I agree.
And you don't want them to fall into that WCW trap. All these guys that were WWF former stars, and then by the end they were all pretty old. And you didn't real young stars.
Right. And I'll be honest with you, some of the storylines they've run already have paralleled some stuff WCW has done in the past.
Yeah.
And whether they're using some of their playbook or whatever, so you want to, I don't know, just my opinion, but they're doing a good job. They're doing a great job, actually. The question is, where does it go long term?
You're right. Tony, actually, the last time I was on the show, I started watching again, covering the show that I do every time. So it's been getting a lot of and they're going back towards the edgier product. And I'm trying to think of what it was, but so a couple of the female wrestlers have literally on air have been heard calling another one a bitch. And then the other day, Seth Rollins said, "I don't give a shit," and I was like, "Seriously? That's more edgy than a long time." So I don't know if maybe they're trying to go back towards the Attitude Era mindset, but they're definitely switching things up, trying to do something a little bit different.
Yeah, I agree. I think they are. And hopefully they're able to do that and capitalize and everything keeps taking off. Right now, it seems like the independent the independent territory is doing better than the mainstream, because it seems like I see so many independent cards popping up everywhere and they're drawing really well. And I think a lot of that has to do with ticket prices as far as what they charging now to go see mainstream stuff versus independents, and on top of that, you go to independent, you're seeing like I talked about earlier, you're seeing emotions. You're not seeing a 3-minute scripted match. You know what I mean? It's just different, I think, which I definitely enjoy. So, well, guys, it's been great getting back together and reminiscing about the old days, and then talking about this great pay-per-view. We'll definitely all have to get back together again soon and do this again, because man, this was fun. And after Chris, before you came on, I was telling Willie it's been almost over a month since we done our last show, because me being sick and everything else going on. But so I was glad that you were able to still come be on the show tonight.
Oh man, just thanks for being flexible. It's a long day today. There's a lot going on. I mean, there's a lot going on in general, it seems, and but we try to squeeze it all in. And if I could add just a little bit to your show, that makes sense. That's all that matters, and we have a good time with it.
Yeah, for sure. It was good. I enjoyed it. Now, one other thing that I want to talk about before we get off the air, Willie has he has a great show that I'd like you fans to go check out too. It's called the Fight Gods Network, right? Right, Willie? Is that correct?
Well, it's the Fight Gods podcast, but yeah, it's on the Fight Gods Network. That's what we're working on, getting some other shows on there. So yeah, we go by that. But yeah, I appreciate it, man. We cover all combat sports and a lot of like pop culture. Like we see, it's me and my cousin Nico. He's like a lifelong career martial artist. So we like to talk about MMA, wrestling, boxing, but if we see a good movie or talk about music, stuff like that, we like to discuss that. But hey, before we go, Tony, do you mind if I tell a quick story to Chris?
Yeah, please.
All right, so Chris, back I did a few shows. So I guess like at one point, I think it was probably in the summer of 2001 or 2000, probably summer of 2001. I was booking some shows for you, and my dad was like always a big wrestling fan, and he had a drinking problem. He drank a good 12-pack, case of beer a day, whatever. God rest his soul, problem. And so it would always like tickle my dad to death. Andy Fernandez would call and ask me to be on a show. So like my dad out there talking wrestling, like who the hell is he talking to? And then Manny's on the phone for you. And I'm like on the phone with this dude for like 45 minutes talking about old wrestling. Seriously, so this happened a couple times. He calls me and like I talk to him. Hey man, there's a Greensboro Bats game. I think it was like tomorrow. And he's like, hey, we're gonna do some wrestling on there. And I'm like, hey, I've got to work. He's like, well, what do you mean you got to work? He's like, where are you doing a show? I'm like, no, I've got to work. Like I've got to do my job. I worked at Bennigan's at the time, and I'm a waiter. He's like, well, listen, give me your boss's phone number. I'm gonna call and talk to him. I'm like, it's real? Like, he's going to call my regular job and tell my boss I can't make it so I can go wrestle tomorrow? I was like, this dude is, like, out of his mind, man. And, but, yeah, it was just something that I've always, like, thought was pretty funny, man.
That was I call your boss. I'm going to talk to him for you.
Yeah, for real. I was like, I can't take the day off. I'm working. I can't to work. But, yeah. That was just one of the funny times that I had in the wrestling business. Manny was a character, man.
That's definitely a classic. Manny, we would probably try to work him out of a free breakfast as well while he's on the phone with him.
It's like, I'll come shoot
Tony, shoot the boogie angle, right?
That's right. Hey, brother. Got it. 250.
A couple of signed pictures.
That's right. Do the picture gimmick, brother. All day long.
No, that's a classic story and one I did not know. So thank you for shedding some light on that.
Absolutely, man.
Good old Manny, man. Well, guys, thank you again for coming on the show, and fans, we'll definitely be back next week, and we'll have another show. And I'm all healed up. I got my voice back somewhat, and hopefully next week we'll have another great show. And who knows, maybe Willie may be back again next week. You never know. You just got to make sure you tune into our show to find out. And like I said, guys, go give Willie's podcast a try. I've listened to a few episodes. It's really good. It's really entertaining. And if you're into MMA and combat sports, you would definitely love that show. So go check it out. Chris, I will see you next week. And Willie, thanks again for coming on the show, man. I really appreciate it.
Thank you guys for having me, man. It's always awesome. I love being on here, and I'll definitely come back soon, man. There's plenty of topics.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I know we could all talk all night about the good old days, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely, Willie. Thanks for joining us. Love to have you back on, and I'm sure we could dig up some more old stories here and have some good laughs and some flashbacks.
I got plenty of them, man.
For sure.
All right.
Well, guys, for Willie and Chris, I'm Tony. We'll see you next week here on the Binge Buster Show.
Thank you for listening to the Binge Buster Show. Make sure you like us on Facebook and download us on your favorite podcast platform.